I noticed a trend of One Piece fans believing Kaido was overrated after the Wano arc ended, which is not surprising because One Piece fans rarely care about context and if it even matters. If anything, just like Dracula Mihawk with the world's greatest swordsman title and Whitebeard with the world's strongest man title, it was a given Mr. Strongest Creature Alive Kaido would be questioned, especially after losing to Gear 5 Luffy, who has the lore from the first world Nika all the way to the second world Joy Boy from the Harley text, and is destined to fight who we believe is the true strongest creature alive, Imu, once he reveals himself from the shadows. But what if I told you since Wano nothing has been shown to Power Cliff Kaido, where fans shouldn't even consider anything about him overrated? And with the recent battle of Scopper Gaban dealing with base Luffy with relative ease, even though Luffy wasn't really seriously fighting in his base form, and forcing Zoro to coat his swords and conquer his haki, or some sort of haki like he did in King of Hell mode versus King, and Luffy to use his white form Nika Gear 5 in a potential 2v1 versus an out of his prime old man, things are starting to lose control in the fandom. So today I will be doing a deep dive on how Scopper Gaban's impressive showing does nothing to change how we should view Kaido's strength. A perfect example is no further than the opposite of the left hand of the Pirate King. Yep, that's right. Just look at the right hand man of the Pirate King, Rayleigh, who just admit after Wano that he would lose to the Yonko Blackbeard in a 1v1 fight. Even though Blackbeard avoided the conflict due to Rayleigh's reputation and the Kankurazaki coding leaking from his sword, and Rayleigh has always admitted he's not the same as he once was, even seen with stamina issues during the fight with Admiral Kizaru during pre-time skip. But one thing about Oda is he will always hype up the older legends in this series. This is actually a quote by Oda, regardless of them being out of their prime. Case in point, the world's strongest man Whitebeard during Marineford, beating the brakes off of Akaino, even though Akaino got back up and continued fighting while taking half of Whitebeard's phase off and dealing a devastating magma punch to Whitebeard's gut because of Whitebeard's thickness holding him back. But Oda still shows Whitebeard clashing with Mr. Haki Man himself, Shanks, when he is first introduced, and fighting with the Pirate King Goldie Roger for 3 days in his prime while using Kankurazaki coding. It's like Oda loves to show context for these legends of the old era. Even Big Mom was shown to have lost a step during her major encounters during Whole Cake Island and Wano, especially with her taking damage to Law and Kid, who did numerous awakened attacks, and this is where Big Mom began to take them serious, just to eventually lose to the young Worst Generation combo attacks and an explosion. Compare that to what Kaido had to face on Wano, and you can easily see age slowed her down. But just because she lost a step, Oda's still gonna highlight her by having her Kankurazaki clash with Kaido in between Wano, and having her one-shot page 1 with Kankurazaki coding. Though she rarely uses it versus Kid in Law, if anything, Luffy used Kankurazaki more in his fight than the former Yonko, which is just mind-blowing. Finally, I want to highlight Grandpa Garp, who we have heard so many great things about, like how he became the hero of the Marines during God Valley by teaming up with Roger and fighting the monster Roxy Zebek, Roger's greatest enemy. But when it came down to him fighting in the story, he lost to former Admiral Aokiji and his former student. And I must admit, Blackbeard's right hand Shiryu the Rain did help by dealing a very big blow to Garp, and it kind of reminded me how Big Mom got taken down, as she was not taken down 1v1, just like how Garp wasn't taken down 1v1. Yet Oda still has him enter Pirate Island Beehive with Kankurazaki coding a Galaxy Impact and dealing heavy blows to Aokiji, even got Shiryu the Rain after he got stabbed by him. Then of course Avalu Pizarro got hit with a heavy blow as well. Sanwan Wolf got thrown off the island. The fact of the matter is, yes, Garp lost a step, but Garp is still powerful in his old age, and that's just a pattern that Oda likes to do with these old men in the series. Yet I'm still going to be realistic when it comes to their power. So let's move focus to the man who was known as the strongest creature alive. First things first, we cannot rewrite history as most One Piece fans love to do. Kaido did not solely lose to Luffy using Gear 5. There was many factors like him fighting the Red Scabbards on the rooftop. Ashura Doji already overpowered Jack early in the arc, where Kaido was even recruiting him to join the Beast Pirates in a drunk tirade. And then there was Denjiro, who's considered to be the strongest samurai on Orochi's side. Kaido himself said Inarashi and Nekomamushi were strong after they defeated Jack with their Sulong forms, and they would later defeat Jack the Mammoth and Perospero, 2 top-tier Yonko commanders. And Kinemon was also considered to be the leader of this Red Scabbards group, even though he wasn't the strongest. Had he not time traveled, I generally believe he would still be the strongest in the Red Scabbards, which is why he joined Ashura Doji Denjiro Inarashi in doing Oden's two-sword style against Kaido, the Paradise Totsuka. Lastly, Izu was a top young commander on Whitebeard ship and took down a CP0 agent. We even see Oden teaching the entire Red Scabbards Ryo, so Kaido low diffing this big group of fighters that teamed up against him has to be remembered, especially when we're scaling Kaido, since he immediately fought right after and was lifting Onigashima the entire time he was fighting Luffy. So I cannot rewrite history and ignore this Red Scabbard versus Kaido fight. The second thing I want to highlight is him fighting Eustace Kid, Law, Killer, Zoro, and Luffy on the rooftop. Let's be honest, Big Mom was there as well, so it wasn't like a 1v5 for Kaido, but a lot of the big hits they were landing were on Kaido, like Luffy using Red Rock, the most advanced armor haki in the series. And then Luffy used Gear 4 with Kong Gatling that had some sort of advanced armor haki. Zoro was also able to cut Kaido's scales with Enma Ryobu, so all this little damage adds up on the rooftop. The third thing is being scarred by Zoro's Ashura attack that was coded in Conqueror's haki, and then getting a barrage of Luffy coding his attacks with Conqueror's haki as well and beating up Kaido and taking him down. Kaido would end up still winning, but like I said, damage builds up. The fourth thing is Yamato having a full-blown 1v1 with her father, as she used her Oni strength combined with her mythical zone ability and her Conqueror's Haki coding that surprised the entire fanbase on her attacks, only for her to then team up with Snake Man to do a Conqueror's Haki coded combo attack, and Kaido still hadn't fought Gear 5 yet. Like, damn, this is so much damage that Kaido's taking and still fighting. The fifth thing I want to say is Luffy using Snake Man and Bounce Man, alternating these forms while coding in Conqueror's Haki. This to me was the most damage Kaido received, especially that Supreme Overcon gun. But I will give Luffy some benefit in the doubt when it comes to CP0 Agent Guernica causing him to be killed by Kaido as an attack, which pretty much led to him awakening Gear 5. This is the most damage in bulk I've seen Kaido take before Gear 5. And then you're going to tell me he goes to fight Gear 5 and I'm supposed to ignore all his previous battles? There was not a time where Kaido just rested and waited for Gear 5. No, this is all happening back to back to back. So no, I cannot deny Kaido's power. Now the final thing we have to talk about is pretty much the reason why people think Kaido's overrated. Gear 5 versus Kaido. Yes, Luffy does win, but context matters as Kaido tanked numerous attacks while dealing the most damage to Gear 5 we have ever seen in the series. And people are calling him weak, which is mind-boggling. Then you have to add Kaido taking on a Bajirang gun head-on when he didn't even need to confront it head-on. Just shows how strong Kaido is. Even in his defeat, he went out like a boss. Now, when you compare this to the dudes Luffy has fought after Kaido, it's not even close. First of all, Lucci almost went unconscious from a regular punch to his gut that had no haki. This is the same Lucci who was still standing after Zoro scarred him up with Conqueror's Haki coding. Then there's Kizaru, who yes overpowered Gear 4 Snake Man Luffy and avoided a lot of Gear 5's attacks, but still, when he got hit with that one punch to his skull, he wasn't able to move for a bit. And we've seen Kaido get hit by Gear 5 punches like similar to that, even worse. And Kaido's durability like just automatically shits on Kizaru. And Kizaru never dealt great damage to Gear 5, though he did have mental nerves. That still doesn't change the fact that Kaido was easily more impressive. It's not even close. Now, if you want to add the Gorosei to the equation, the only thing Luffy struggles with was their immortality. Other than that, they weren't even close to Kaido in power. Though Workery did show durability feats above Kaido, taking Gear 5 attacks, none of the Gorosei were still not able to damage Gear 5 like Kaido did, and they had multiple chances to during the arc. Now, one of the main reasons why people think Kaido's overrated is one of the main reasons why I didn't think Kaido was the strongest character in the series before Wano. And that was because Kaido wasn't a final villain. Wano wasn't a final saga arc. Now we're heading into the final saga and we're seeing these final villains and prominent characters in the final saga be elevated. We saw Blackbeard do some amazing things when it comes to blocking a Seraphim with his arm and haki punch. And then of course, taking out Boa Hancock, which is a pretty good feat. Boa Hancock low diffs a lot of characters. And then, of course, Rayleigh admitting that Blackbeard would have beat him in a 1v1 fight. That does drastically good things for Blackbeard's stocks in the final saga. And then the fact that he took out Law and Oda didn't show the actual fight. It's like Oda was trying to hide Blackbeard's power. Definitely gives Blackbeard good PR for the final saga. And then there's Luffy. When it comes to Luffy, after he defeats an opponent, he usually fights stronger opponents after the arc. And a lot of times just gradually gets stronger where his previous opponents don't look that strong. Like Katakuri, let's be honest here. Katakuri, when we left Whole Cake Island, people still believed Katakuri was stronger than Luffy. We got to Wano and Katakuri now gets insulted because of how good Luffy did in Wano. And the same thing was going to happen after Gear 5 developed in Egghead Island and now in Elbaf. people are gonna definitely downplay Kaido's ability because Gear 5 is developing and getting stronger. And lastly is Red Hair Shanks. Red Hair Shanks comes to Wano, uses his Conqueror's Haki on Greenbow without even stepping on the island, stops him from actually attacking, sends his ass packing, and then goes and fights Eustace Kid and Killer and defeats him in one shot with Divine Departure, sees into the future, 10 seconds into the future. Later on Egghead Island, Dory and Broggy say his haki is comparable to Joy Boy's haki, like pretty much the strongest character that we've ever heard of when it comes to characters. Oh yeah, let me not forget that Kaido had Shanks in his top 5 as well, and Shanks actually stopped Kaido from heading towards Marine Ford. So this is where people are kind of like, okay, these characters are really making you look at Kaido sideways. And let's not even mention Jackie Miyagi. Jackie Miyagi led Buggy to becoming a Yonko, and his bounty when it comes to pirates is only below Shanks and Blackbeard's, 2 captains of the Yonko. So there are a lot of characters that haven't even shown their powers in Imu and Dragon, and characters that we're just seeing get developed in the final saga. And then you just start thinking to yourself, is Kaido really him or is he a fraud? That's what's happening. But let me tell you guys right now, no, Kaido's not a fraud. It's just Oda highlighting different characters because the final saga, things are about to bump up, and Kaido is still legitimately one of the strongest characters in the series. This might bring out some anger in the comment section, but the pirate I view as the strongest is Red Hair Shanks, and Kaido has always been comparable to the man from the Figureland family. Kaido was an apprentice to Roxy Zebek, Shanks was an apprentice to Goldie Roger, who were each other's greatest rivals. Then there's the fact on Elbaf the most hyped up character is Shanks, the same way Kaido was the most hyped up character on Wano. Does that mean Shanks will fall during the Elbaf arc? Who knows? All I'm trying to say is Oda is obviously making Kaido and Shanks comparable, even as far as to have the only living character to be in Kaido's top 5 be Shanks. So this is a big reason Kaido can't be overrated, because he has both feats and narrative when it comes to power scaling. Hey, if Kaido was to be power cliffed, Elbaf is the perfect arc because of Loki, the strongest giant with a legendary dove fruit, most likely the serpent we see on the mural, and Figureland Shamrock, Shanks' twin brother, older twin brother at that, the commander of the Holy Knights. But this is just optimism and hypothetical, so until proven otherwise, Kaido resume stays intact, as even Luffy being above the strongest creature alive Kaido is still questionable with his Gear 5 drawback. So let's slow the roll on the Kaido hate. I get it, you guys want new hype villains, and I knew this was going to be a problem after Wano, but even Oda said he did not know how to defeat Kaido. That's how strong he was. Kaido was just that immovable object that was a little bit early. The reason why I say it was a little bit early is because characters like Kaido are usually seen at the end of the story. To me, Kaido is like a character like Aizen from Bleach, or Pain from Naruto, characters that could have easily been the final villain of the story, but were used to actually progress the main character so he's able to actually fight the real final villain in the series. Don't get me wrong, I never believed Kaido to be the strongest character in the story, even before he fought Luffy during Wano, but if I'm being real, his fight with Luffy only proves him to be the strongest creature alive. Now, am I saying I believe Kaido's top 1? No, but I do not think Scopper Gaban or any of Luffy's opponents in Egghead Island has changed my perception of how strong Kaido is. For all I know, Shanks, Blackbeard, Dragon, Akainu, Garling, Imu could all be stronger than Kaido, and I still would not think he's overrated. So take that as you may. But as always, if you disagree, debate in the comment section.